All right, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Donny Cho Says Stuff, where we discuss the deep pressing matters that affect our nation and our world, and sometimes even our reality. And today, I have my esteemed colleague here, Mr. Jason McLean, joining us to offer up his opinions and thoughts on a very important event that took place in American, I guess, mainstream media.
Mhm.
And that was the presidential debate that took place. When was it? Like a few weeks ago now? No,
Well,
not a
it's
few weeks ago, a few days ago.
well,
Wait,
no, it
when
happened.
was
No, it happened last week, but this is in the future, so it's been a while.
it? It's
I
been a
love
while.
that we're. I love how on top of things you are, Donnie. I appreciate
Anyway,
that greatly.
anyway, I didn't watch it because, dude, I already know it's all a train wreck. I don't need to be reminded of it. I was just like, I'd rather be playing Helldivers right now. So that's what I did
Yeah,
with my time.
which is
But I'm
fair.
sure you were paying attention there, Mr. McLean,
I had
taking
to
notes.
watch. I had to watch everything, so I didn't watch the actual live thing because there's no point
Hmm.
to it because these aren't actual debates. But the thing is, so a friend of mine was actually getting married. I was officiating his wedding that evening, so I had to catch it on replay.
Mm. Okay, so for this episode, concept is very simple. Jason McLean, give us your thoughts and reflections on the
Okay.
presidential debate. Go. Just let it go. Let it all out there. Let's get political, baby. Let's get
It
political.
There was only one thought, and I had it as soon as it was announced. It's actually as soon as Biden had his 15-second 12 jump cut uh, challenge, right? When he was like, "I want to challenge Donald Trump to a debate," it had like 5 jump cuts in a 15-second ad. And I knew so
Hmm.
I knew what this was the second it was announced. This was the deep state trying to get rid of Biden. That's all this was. This was never a debate. It was never about a debate. It wasn't even, some people said, well, this is really like an audition. This was done for one reason only, and that was to get rid of Biden. And I will give my evidence as to why that was confirmed later. But
Okay.
as soon as they announced this, there were a couple things. One, none of them are the nominees yet. They're not nominees. They've not been confirmed. By the way, the Democrat uh, conference, or I forget the anyway, whatever it is, when they get together and they actually declare
The
him to be the
convention,
nominee. The
the
convention,
Democrat.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible with names. That happens actually after like the deadline for I think it was Iowa to even be on the ballot, and so they're trying to scramble and get that fixed. So they're like, "Hey, can you change your law, Iowa? Can you change your laws so that when we get a nominee, you can put them on the ballot?" A lot of people say this is all very weird, right? But they're not. It's like neither of them are the nominee yet. This was not going through the traditional presidential election group that does these debates, right? No, so all of this is weird and off script. And as soon as I heard that, I said, "Okay, this is official. The deep state's trying to get rid of him." A lot of people said, "Oh no, this is an audition. Maybe we can keep him. Is he worth saving?" Or no, full stop. They want to get rid of him. They know they have to because he's losing. If he was winning, this would not have happened.
Like they
If
knew
they,
he was going to be losing before it even started.
well, his poll numbers are bad with everyone across the board.
Yeah.
And so the problem, which is why again the lawfare against Trump was to get him was a not really about getting him out necessarily, like saying he's incapable of being elected president. It was to bring down enough pain and suffering on him that he would just bow out.
Hmm.
That's what that was. That's what that was about. Because again, what we need to understand is it's not Republican or Democrat. It is the establishment, military and industrial Congress, complex against all the rest of us. There's the official. You make your money off of the government, and then there's economy. Then there's the rest of the actual economy that props it up. Trump is on our side of that line. I don't think he's a great person. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's like you worship." No, I don't. He's a jerk. But you know whose side he's actually on is the economy actually working. He had to make his money in the real world. He's on our side of this fight. Doesn't mean that he's right about everything. It's like throw anything at him that you want. What he isn't is part of that deep state cabal. We know that because of how they came after him, how hard they came after him. Again, when he was first elected president, a guy I was working with asked me, I said, so what do you think? I said, yeah, because I didn't vote for him the first time. He's not, the dude's not a conservative. He's just the average Democrat 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I said, if Trump does one thing, he'll go down as the best president to have ever existed. And that is if he just is a monkey wrench in the overarching scheme so that he jams up enough stuff that everyone gets to see how corrupt the system really is, he'll go down as one of the greatest presidents we've ever had. Everything else is on top of that. Because all he's actually trying to do, he's like, well, let's just fix problems. Most of our problems exist because the politicians want them to exist. There's no attempt at solving any of it. They need it to run on. And that's that's Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Libertarian. If they are in power, by and large, they understand that they can't run if there isn't a problem. So it's not, so this isn't, oh, I love Republicans. No, they're all schmucks. If he gets nuked tomorrow, I'm not going to have a problem with Washington being radioactive. But the thing that we need to understand is our entire system has been rigged, and the problem is Trump is the proof that it is rigged because he is a symptom. Because we know it's rigged, and enough people have been left out in the cold. In middle America, in the blue collar workers, a lot of us have been left out of this economy for a long, long time. We've been saying, hey, this isn't how this is supposed to work. And so he comes along and he's tapping into a populist uprising. In many ways, the Republican Party existed to be a heat sink for populism, to be a heat sink for conservatives, for people who actually want to produce things and let things run and just sort of be left alone, right? And I use the word heat sink in a very literal sense. It was a way for that energy to go somewhere, and so we thought that there was at least something of a choice, right? And a lot of people probably were well-meaning, but they were controlled by the upper echelon, right? That has a lot more fine control. There is no one person running everything and everyone's following orders. That's not how that works. It's way more convoluted, right? These are all egotists anyway. They're not going to follow orders. But they will do what's in their best interest.
Right.
They bribes, whole 9 yards, right? So it has always been a very delicate balancing match, right, for these people. I've never really believed that Biden would serve out his term. I actually don't think he was supposed to be elected. I think the reason he was picked, is because they didn't know if what they were going to do was going to work in 2020. So they said, who are the most expendable people that we have who if they lose, it's no big deal, right? No one with any real potential future is lost. But if they win, we can work with them and we can make certain they do what they're told, right? Biden and Kamala Harris, 100%. That's who. Because everyone forgets how remarkably unlikable Kamala Harris is. Like she wasn't even going to, when she dropped out in 2020 before she went to her home state, California, because she knew how bad those numbers were going to be.
Yeah.
The only person more unlikable than Kamala Harris is Hillary Clinton. So these were people who were expendable. But the problem is they won. Because again, Time Magazine came out and said how this was saved, right? How they fortified. This is what Time Magazine came out and said this. They said, oh no, it was a cabal. They even used the word cabal of private interest and all. Well, again, they weren't certain if it was going to work, and there are probably other groups. So the problem is it just actually worked. And so they're like, okay, well, we're stuck with them. but we can work with them. They will give us what we want because we can just bribe them and they'll follow at least the orders that we need them to follow, right? I never thought that he would actually serve out the first term. My thought was they said, okay, we need to look out for the future. We'll get rid of him because he's on the way out, but we get rid of him after year 2 so that Kamala can run for 2 full terms. I figured that would be the deal they would cut, right? Because if she served 3 years, she could only run one more time. And she's such a narcissist and power hungry politician. I figured she would want to be able to run for twice. Like that would be the deal that they'd broker, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that they've sat out with him this long, it blew my mind. So, but as soon as they announced this thing, I'm like, Deep State's got to get rid of him because the problem is the media has been protecting him the entire time, right? If you're on the right, you've seen all the videos of him trying to shake hands with people who don't exist and just wandering off stages. Like you've seen all of these, you know what's going on. And the media has gone out of their way to protect him the entire time. Well, literally up until a week before, Joe Scarborough was like, this is like Biden's the greatest thing that's ever happened. He's sharper than he's ever been. Like, it's what they were saying. It's insane what they were doing. But what happens is during the debate, within the first 3 questions, I mean, again, the way he walked out was terrible. But even by the 3rd question, he was already starting to, do the traditional Joe Biden can't complete a sentence thing.
Yeah.
By doing it live, it couldn't be hidden. And by the time it's over, everyone in the media is like, hey, is Joe Biden too old? Is this what's going right? They all turned on him immediately. In fact, one of the funniest things was actually after the debate, Anderson Cooper of CNN does this interview with Kamala Harris. It is the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life because Anderson's going at her, I mean, way harder than anyone's ever gone after a Democrat in the last 20 years.
Especially on CNN, yeah.
Oh, especially on CNN.
Yeah.
And the look on her face is like, Anderson, this isn't what we practiced. That is the look on her. She is shocked that he's going in so hard on her and he's actually asking questions about Biden. She's clearly shocked. She has no clue what's going on. And Anderson, you could tell the back of his head is like, I really hope my CIA handler likes me now. I can't remember if it was I want to see, because New York Times immediately came out and said, we need to get rid of him. But I can't remember if it was New York Times or one of the
I remember those shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, very specifically, it was an article that was written.
No, they had, because I listened to the New York Times podcast and they were talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, I can't remember if it was New York Times that this occurred or if it was one of the other, again, major mainstream publications. There was an article, it was about, how they need to get rid of Biden. Someone looked at the metadata on it. And the title, getting rid of Biden, had been written 2 days earlier. Now, theoretically, right? They could have been working on 2 different versions of the, sort of laying out things. And then once the debate's over, they go and they polish one up and they post it, right? Because it was posted that morning, or it was posted the next morning. So it was written, it was a rather lengthy article written rather quickly. So you could argue, okay, they just had 2 and they were sort of they kind of had the framework of what they wanted to say, and then they just wanted to see how it went and they'd fill in the gaps. You could make that argument. But the fact of the matter is the article was clearly prepared 2 days prior. This was a political hit job, and it was to get rid of him, because the problem is everyone had been protecting him this whole time. So finally they're like, okay, here's the problem. If we're going to switch horses midstream here, we need to reinforce the idea that there's a reason for him to go. That's what this was.
What is up with all the sirens in the background?
Hold on. I don't think they found me. Yeah, it doesn't look good.
You better be watching what you're saying right now, Mr. McLean.
Well,
You never know who you might piss off.
oh
I gotta
please. If
say.
with all the stuff that I've said online, I'm fairly certain that they're coming for me. This ain't gonna be it. Um, but yeah, no, hold on. Okay, yeah, that should be fine. Um, it's I think we're fine. Yeah. Long story short, this was one thing and one thing only. This was we need to get rid of Joe Biden, and this was how we need to do it because what we need to understand is the vast majority of people just do what they're told.
Mm-hmm.
They believe what they're told. And the mainstream media is still not CNN, but ABC, NBC, CBS, New York Times, Dallas, the Dallas Morning News, all of it. That's still the bulk of most people's information. It's dwindling, and so it's now TikTok, which is and YouTube, it's like which is even worse. But it's gotten so bad that even the reason Biden's losing is because people are seeing the discrepancy between what they're being told and what they're living.
Mm.
They're being told inflation's under control, and they see their grocery bills.
Yeah.
They're told that we have a system, a judicial system that works, but people are looking at what's going on with Trump, and even people who are again traditional Democrat voters are saying, "Yeah, this feels real sketchy here, guys." Right?
That
And
that
so,
kind of that kind of reminds me, Jason.
yeah.
Last night
Mhm.
I was doing a show with the Blondes.
Mhm.
Tex was there, Paranormal Paul, and one of the topics was disclosure. Right? People in
Yeah.
the paranormal
Mhm.
community, they love talking about disclosure. Like, oh, when's the
Right. Yeah.
government going to finally come out and admit that we got aliens and shit? Right?
Mhm.
And then I made the point. I was like, the only time the government would actually be honest about that is if lying about it would be if the existence of aliens was so obvious that lying about it would actually make them look worse.
Yes.
That's the only time, right? And
Yeah.
imagine what you're talking about is kind of like this situation where,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Essentially, we've gotten to the point where even average normal people who would be inclined to vote Democrat again, most people, Republican or Democrat, just vote R or D. They don't really know enough to know if this is a person who's worth voting for.
right.
This is not my opinion. That's just the truth. There's plenty of times where people who were not Republicans ran as a Republican and they won, not because they were anybody different, but because they just had an R next to their name. Same thing with Democrats. So the simple fact of the matter is things have gotten so bad that it's the discrepancy, and that's why people are going for Trump, because they see him as a protest vote against what's going on. So they realize they're losing control, and they're like, well, if we can just make him our scapegoat and get somebody else in there, then we can win. Then we could still maybe pull this off. The trick is Biden's not going to go. This man, who is a monster, pedophilic monster. I'm glad you're not monetized, because we would have lost it for that one.
Hey, you said it, not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This man who's been bought by China and Russia and everyone else with a drop bag, he doesn't want to go anywhere, because as much as we talk about, okay, well, he's senile, he's got dementia, whatever he has, failure to thrive, like you can really see it in his face. The simple fact of the matter is he's coherent enough to know what's going on enough of the time to not want to leave. He has, he's sundowning. He's definitely, he is someone who you could still legally close a loan with, right? I've had to take elder abuse classes. He's coherent enough lucid enough for long enough to understand where he is and what he's doing. The problem is it's not long enough. He's clearly not up to the job, but he also knows he doesn't want to go. He likes being president. He's been trying to run for president since the 80s. This dude has been trying to con his way into the Oval Office since the 80s.
No, this dude's been like in politics longer than you and I have been alive.
Yes. He for like the only time between college and His first term as senator was like 2 years. That's how long he was in the real world. That's it. And again, if you want some fun, go look at why he had to drop out in 86 or 88. I forget when he had to drop. I think he dropped out in 87. Go look at that. But this dude's been in politics longer than either of us have been alive, and he's been running since I was a child. He's wanted to be president forever. This is what he wants more, and he genuinely believes that he was the power in Obama's term. This dude believes that the reason the Obama administration is considered a success by Democrats was because of him. He has that much of an ego. He will not leave. He has to be forced out. And the problem is the CIA, and they learned this with Nixon. Like, they got their one-off with Kennedy. With Nixon, they're like, okay, we have to be a lot more subtle about this, because everyone forgets Nixon was one of the most popular presidents ever elected, period. The whole Watergate scandal, getting rid of Spiro Agnew. I think they got rid of Spiro Agnew and brought in his second vice president, whose name Johnson. No, was it Johnson? I'm terrible with names. Anyway, that whole thing was set up by the CIA to get rid of him because he was not going to play ball with them, with the CIA.
And don't forget, very much like Teddy Roosevelt, also a cryptid experiencer.
Exactly.
Because he had an encounter with the Elvis.
With the Elvis. Yes, he did.
Anyway, continue.
Moving on. So you could argue Hinckley was that they probably knew that it wouldn't get Reagan, but it was literally a shot across the bow, right? Saying, hey, you might want to play a little ball with us because you're coming in a little too hot. So they know better than to necessarily try a full-on assassination of him. Although there have been some people who've speculated that honestly they could try a false flag where it's like, okay, he gets killed, he's assassinated, but they make it look like a Trump supporter did it. But I don't think they want to play that, because too many people right now would look at it and go, that's not what happened. They've lost control over the media that they used to have, and I think they recognize that. So they need to get rid of him. He has to be forced out. But they also know that if the media is still protecting him, which they've been doing the entire time, like he's been like this the entire time, and they've all covered for him. So they needed to send a signal, hey, y'all got to turn on him right now. If we're going to change this, up, that's what this debate was. And this is why, which is why immediately during the debate, we can't, hey, what's going on here? This guy's not fresh. This is happening. Why is it going on? Why are y'all telling us this? And they started asking questions. That's how you know this was a setup. They started asking questions they already knew the answers to, because they've been lying about it for the last 3 years. And like I said, go watch the Anderson Cooper Kamala Harris interview that happens right after the debate. It is hilarious. But you can tell she's like, what is going on here? She's flabbergasted that she's actually having to answer real questions, because they cover for them.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for 3 years. Biden will come out and say something completely incoherent, and they will fix the text. They will say things that he never said, but that's what he was supposed to have said. They've known this. This is not a shock. So you can tell who didn't get the memos and who did. I am almost certain, I wouldn't put money on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jill got a note. And she got a memo and Kamala Harris didn't. I don't think we need to, because again, I have 3 kids. There's a certain point where you only have so many tones. Like my wife's like, you're using she'll look at me like, Jason, you're using your tone you use for the kids. I'm like, I've got 3, 2 of them are basically grown adults, and the other one's still in high school. This is the only tone I have left, right? That child tone.
Yeah.
And Jill, she was originally the babysitter. And you know, she's got kids and grandkids, even the ones they don't recognize. And so I can imagine Jill has that tone, right? That child tone. She used it on Joe right after the debate. She said, "Joe, you did so good. You answered every question." You hear it, and you're just like, "What the hell, lady?" I would not be, again, I think this probably, again, in her defense, that may be the only tone she has left, right? She's a grandmother. You're around that many kids, and she's an educator. You kind of like, that's kind of the tone you're left with.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to believe that's what happened. But if we were to wave a magic wand and someone says, yeah, she got the memo that it's time for him to leave, so we need her to make it obvious that he's, you know, lost it, and that he's not, and that, you know, we need her to be more obvious about how she's treating him. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be shocked in the least if that's and here's the deal that would be made if that's the case. If he leaves and there is a full-on pardon of Hunter Biden on everything, and no one looks into the real crimes of Hunter Biden, because again, the gun crime and the tax crimes are all, those are the gimmies, because what they have on him is so bad. And because they know it's not, because here's the thing, it's not just Biden they're protecting at this point, it is Obama. Because for Biden to do what he did during the Obama presidency, Obama's in on it. Obama was making money off of all that too. He had to have, or he wouldn't have let it happen. Same thing with the whole Hillary Clinton server scandal. It's not Hillary Clinton they're protecting at this point. It is Obama, because they need to protect him. If Biden drops out, they don't 25th Amendment him. If he drops out, and if suddenly everything about Hunter Biden goes away as far as any official looking into, I guarantee you, then I would be willing to bet that's then Jill got the memo and said, we need him out, and you're going to make it happen, or we're coming for you real hard. Because at this point they need him out. Because they know there's no way for him to win credibly. Even the problem is they would have to jury rig it too hard. Like 2020, the reason a lot of people don't believe, again, and we're talking about people on the left don't necessarily believe 2020 was on board, was above board. There's a lot of people on the left who are like, this felt weird. They pushed too hard. They didn't think they needed to do it for Trump, right? That's why they didn't. They didn't think they needed to, but they did this time, and it pushed hard. They know that any way that they do it, where Biden wins this time, no one's going to believe it. So they need somebody else, someone who can step in credibly. And the problem is they also know it can't be Kamala, because again, she's the most disliked politician since Hillary Clinton.
Who do you think they have in mind?
I legitimately have no clue. I would like to think, I mean,
okay, let's say you were part of the cabal and they ask you, hey, hello, fellow Illuminato, Jason McLean.
Yeah, yes.
Who should we replace Joe Biden with?
Okay, so if I was an agent of evil,
yeah,
the two immediate go-tos. So here's the thing: I don't think it can't be Kamala for all those reasons, right? I think they either go for Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer. Both are demons. But the other two names that get floated around that I think have some credibility, because there's some other things that need to happen, right, is Michelle Obama, which I feel is a lot of people are throwing her, but I feel like that's kind of I feel like that's a red flag or red herring, because she does not like the public eye as much as people think she does. The story about her sneaking off and going to Target with a lot of makeup on, without the secret, that's a real story. That absolutely happened. You got to remember, when As soon as Bill Clinton was out of office, Hillary went and ran in New York. They moved to New York immediately, and she ran. And the Kennedy, who was going to run for that Senate seat, also mysteriously died in a plane crash. I'm not saying that has anything to do with anything. Just saying Kennedy dies, Hillary wins, and she's their senator. Almost immediately, nothing like that happened with Michelle Obama.
Right.
Michelle is not real, and again, whether Michelle's real name is Michael is irrelevant. I don't even know that I care about it. What I do know is if she had really wanted to be in the spotlight and really wanted to further her political career, she could have. She chose not to. So I'm not saying it's impossible that she's the one that they pick, and because I could see, I could see Barack looking and saying, Michelle, if you don't come in, they're going to come for us, and we're all going to jail, right? I could see that being a thing, because again, Biden's problem, the reason Biden's being protected now and has been for the last couple of years is because Biden's corruption got to the point where the only way it worked was if Obama is in on it. Again, everyone's corrupt. The question is how, right? The other name that got floated, and I would be shocked if they did this, but I could see it, is because you got to get Kamala out of the way credibly, right? There has to be a reason for Kamala to either stay as VP or become president. She becomes the first, female black president. That's how they would start. It's like, look, this is the deal. You do this, we'll give you something else along the way, but you do this, and then you either go back to being VP in the next administration or you go off and do something else. Would be Hillary Clinton.
She's back.
They essentially bring her back because she's lost a lot of weight. She's on a book tour now. I could see them going, because here's the thing: the Democrats don't have a deep bench, and the one thing COVID did is it really damaged their bench more than they realized. The reason Gretchen Whitmer, I think, is probably much higher up on the list is because the whole FBI, their fake kidnapping fiasco that they did during COVID, where again, it's now it's part of public record. That was an FBI it wasn't even a sting. They made it happen. It's entrapment. The actual the people that they were going, they got off because of it. So I think they were trying to set up Gretchen Whitmer as a successor. Saying, oh, look, this, look at how, she was nearly kidnapped, and they keep going back to as much as they can. The problem is things haven't quite worked out. So my default would be Gretchen Whitmer. But again, she did a lot of things during COVID, as did, I just forgot his name, out in California. I mentioned him earlier. Gavin Newsom, yeah. Their behavior during COVID hurt them a lot more than people realize on a national stage. They're still probably fine in California and in
no, man, you look at the state of California now, it's hard to,
right, but California is rigged, like it just is. Like we're again, and again, most of the people who are leaving are conservative. The vast majority of them are people who didn't agree with what was going on to begin with. So California is gone, right? California is its own thing unless something else happens. Same thing with Wisconsin, Wisconsin or Michigan, whichever one Whitmer's in. So again, I think the problem is they were supposed to be the bench, but the goods are too damaged. So, I mean, that's still probably the first go-to. Like, they may just say, look, we can still sell this as long as it's not Biden. Like, anybody but Biden can probably pull this out, is what they're hoping. Or at least if they rig enough things, it's like they won't have to rig it as hard, so it's not as obvious as what they're doing. If they get somebody else, because then they just make Biden the scapegoat for everything, and then they bring these other people in. But again, if it's not Whitmer and it's not Newsom, then it's got to be Clinton. Again, assuming Michelle doesn't step in. But here's the thing: it could be somebody that's not on anyone's radar. It could be someone we haven't thought about yet. But to do that would be really hard. Because the problem is, again, there has to be the illusion of credibility. back to my earlier point, the entire reason the Republican Party has been the way it was up until really not Trump. It was before Trump, but Trump was sort of the thing that sort of cemented it as not that the party itself is the opposition party, but that it's the home of the opposition party, of those who are actually opposed to the broader system, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing that Trump did that really pissed everybody off, because they had enough people in place that, again, it was just a heat sink, which is why it didn't matter who got elected, right? Bush W gets elected, all of a sudden all of the same policies that Clinton had been championing continue.
Yeah.
By and large, when Obama came in, he continued virtually everything Bush had done. He just pushed a lot of certain things harder. So it's the general direction of both parties was still in the same direction.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the jokes has been for a long time, the Republicans are just Democrats with restraint, right? And the thing we kind of have to realize is the Republican Party is an 18th century progressive party, and that Democrats are a 20th century progressive party, right? The Democrats are the progressives of the early 20th century. They're the eugenicists. They're the communists and the socialists. That's the large centralized government eugenics. That's them. But the Republicans are the progressives.
That's a dirty word, Jason McLean. That's a dirty, dirty word.
But it's the truth. That's, again, we're talking about people who, it's like Hillary Clinton said that her greatest hero was Margaret Sanger. I mean, this is their words. They're like, they even say we consider ourselves early 20th century progressives. Like they're the ones telling us what they are. The thing is, the Republicans are 18th and 19th century progressives, which is just a different form of progressive. It's just not, they just haven't progressed as far as to full on communism. Because whether you like it or not, Abraham Lincoln was a statist. He still believed that in a larger centralized system of power, which is why we got the railroads the way we did.
I'm having a hard time believing that they would get Hillary in there, though, again, or they would try. I feel like she's already had her chance multiple times. She's too disliked.
I would tend to agree with you on that. In fact, like I said, she's kind of an outlier. I would not put a lot of money on her, but there's two things we need to remember. Because she's been trying so hard, she would be willing to be a one-term president. I think she'd be willing to make that deal. And what we need to remember is, again, Newsom and Whitmer, they got damaged real hard during COVID in ways that would make them harder to win on a national stage. And they may be desperate enough that they need something, because they've still propped her up, right? Hillary Clinton is still a propped up person from a news media perspective. She's still loved by these people. So I could see them pulling her out of the woodwork to say, look, we need 4 years to rehabilitate our bench, maybe bring somebody completely new in, right? But we need to rebuild our bench here. We need you can take one for the team. Just go out there. It will lead. We can secure a larger percentage of the women vote. We can maybe do some work with the black vote with you up there. But we need this. We need to be able to get rid of Biden, blame everything on him, and bring somebody back at a time when things were a little more normal, and sort of appeal to that. Because things were actually, remember, things under Bill were not bad. Now, again, largely it was because he did allow for more conservative opinions and more conservative policies to be enacted, right? Because Bill Clinton was always way more politically savvy than she was. Everyone said that she was the power behind him. And there's some truth to that, and I'll get to that in a second. But he was always way more politically savvy than people ever realized, in a way, because the economy that we got that was beneficial under Clinton, that he gets a lot of credit for, was really Newt Gingrich's work. It was the Republican Revolution of 1992 and 94 that that led the way to that prosperous 90s economy. Now, again, the problem is our economy is fake, and that's a whole other show. So they may be able to, by bringing her out, it's like, look, you get this one shot. We can bring you in here. We can get things on board, but the problem is people see the problem. People are seeing the issues. This went too hard, too fast. We need something. Let us rebuild we need to rebuild this. So if they pull her out, that's the deal that's made. And the thing we need to remember, she's still actually CIA. The Rose law firm was a front law firm for the CIA to get for a lot of things, actually. In fact, the CIA had back doors into virtually every bank on the planet, into their accounts. It was the Rose law firm that facilitated that. Because again, we have to remember the CIA and the way that everyone talks about the military industrial complex, and that's correct. But it's not just guns and bombs and Raytheon and whatever. It is the intelligence operations. It is the news media. It's all of it. Well, to make that work, you can't just have some dude in a suit. Heck, it's modern art, right? Guys, go watch the Fat Electricians thing on modern art and the CIA. It's 15 minutes. It's a great example of how the CIA manipulates modern culture, right? And it'll sort of let you see, oh, okay, it's not direct power. It's you use a lot of back channels. Well, attorneys are a great back channel, because particularly corporate attorneys, you need a lot of corporate attorneys to do certain things. Contracts have to be signed. And so they are a go-between between different companies and states and all of that. By the way, so is AIG. That's a different, insurance company is a great way to launder money for intelligence operations. Anyway, she was part of the Rose law firm. A lot of people always talked about Whitewater and these weird things that happened around the Clintons in Arkansas. She was a CIA asset. There's a lot of argument that the actual inspiration for the movie The Ghost Rider with Ewan McGregor. Did you ever see that?
No.
It's a boring movie, but it's the payoffs at the end, but I'm going to spoil it, so I'm sorry. So I think it's the movie Ghost Rider with Ewan McGregor, and he's writing this he's writing this politician's autobiography, and there's all these weird things that keep happening. He's a British politician, like they move it a little out, but essentially the big reveal at the end is that he was picked essentially by the CIA, and that the CIA essentially had his wife marry him while they met in college. She was sort of drafted into the CIA in college. It's like, you marry him, we will help his political career. You will guide him into what we want him to be. A lot of people have suggested that movie was actually based on Hillary Clinton. And it was sort of a big, sort of like, hey, this is what Hillary Clinton is. She was picked in college because she's been a scumbag politician. Everyone talks about, she within Nixon, and she did all these things. Look at what people said about her during those. The Democrats kicked her out that she was working for. They're like, I've never met a more unethical human being in my life. She says that she was I think she can't remember if she actually met him or she was just a follower of Saul Alinsky. But both Obama and Hillary Clinton point out Saul Alinsky, the writer of Rules for Radicals, was sort of like their template. I believe she actually met him. I know Obama didn't, but I think she did. Anyway, she was a CIA plant. She was the conduit between Bill Clinton and the CIA to help him along, and which is why all these lucky breaks keep happening very early in his career. It's very, very clear that that's what she is. She's CIA. Again, the reason she didn't win in 2016 was because they didn't think they needed to rig it. They thought that they had everything in the bag. So it was a shock that because think about it, if they knew that, if they had prepared for Trump to win, they wouldn't have done what they did. They wouldn't have done the fake CIA dossier, right? where they, again, everything that happens on all the weird stuff that happens during Trump, as far as all that's all they knew. They were trying to get rid of him because they were trying to stop him because he wasn't a part of the system. They can work with you if you're, if you're Bush or whatever. It doesn't matter, as long as you're in the system, or you'll at least play ball with the system. They'll let you do the things you want to do. You just got to give them what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, they didn't know that they didn't think they needed to with Hillary Clinton, because they thought that she was a shoo-in, that they had, and in fact they probably even made a deal with her, which is why Obama won, because it was her turn. That was the deal. It's supposed to be her turn.
I remember those primaries.
And there's a lot of things I remember about Rush Limbaugh and the things he talked about. But the one thing that always sticks out in my head is he only said it once. He was talking about Obama, and he was, it was right after he'd gotten elected. He said Obama's just weird because this isn't how Democrats behave. This isn't how this works. And he just said it. It was a very offhand comment, and he never talked about it again. But you could tell, like, the way he was saying is like, this isn't, because he knew them. And that's one of the things he talked about. He said, I understand Democrats, how they think, what they think, why they think the things that they do, and why they do the things they do. And he's like, it was very clear that Obama shocked him because this is not how they operate. He was brought up to speak, and now he's the president. Like, this is like, they take their time building people up.
Yeah, he got shotgunned up there.
And so a lot of people think that there was a backroom deal made, because they're like, look, Hillary, you're not that popular. No one really, like, we can't make fetch happen here with you, right? But like I said, I would, again, if I had to put money on it, I'd say it's probably Whitmer, or because I can't even see him going with Newsom because of California, because again, they were both very, very damaged. But if it's not them, I would put money on Hillary versus Michelle, because I really don't think Michelle wants to.
Mm-hmm.
I think she loathes that idea. And I think the only person that it could get away with it would be Hillary Clinton. And again, you would think, well, hold on, she wasn't popular the first time. Yeah, but things are bad enough that they can shove enough onto Biden if he gets out. He becomes the scapegoat. And Hillary can say, hey, remember how good things were under my husband? Well, as we all know, I was the power behind him.
And then they can just sling all the mud at Trump to try to trump up support for Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about all the statements people said that, Trump just kept lying, lies out of his mouth, lies?
Aren't these the same people? Yeah, But again, that's what the news media is going to do, because they're the propaganda. They're the propaganda wing of the Democrat Party, which is just the majority wing of the deep state. That's all it is. It's like, these are the people who've said the entire time that Biden was fine. I mean, that's what it comes down to. These are the people who believe the Russia hoax. These are the people who have covered for him the entire time, and they just turn on him now. Like, I'm sorry, it's like, that's because that's what they are. We have to understand, they are not a news media. They are the propaganda wing of the establishment. That's all they are. They'll lie about whatever they want, whatever they're told to lie about. They'll tell the truth about whatever they want to tell, about whatever they're told to tell the truth about. They are not what they claim to be. There's no point in listening to a con man and thinking that he's and trusting anything that they say. Because again, half the time, the lies that they point out are hyperboles that we understand, right? We understand that they're hyperboles. What they will never call out are Biden's lies, where he says, the inflation rate was over 9% when I took office. No, it wasn't. He's never been called on that. He keeps saying that he was a part of the civil rights movement. No, he wasn't. We know that he wasn't. They've never called him out for that. They won't call him out on any of the things that he actively lies about his own life. Why would I care what people who are we know what they are? They are propagandists. Why would I care what they think? Because at the end of the day, I don't care. I don't think Trump's a good person. That's not why he's there. He's there because he'll do the one thing we need him to do. I'm doing my little politician pin thing now. He'll do the one thing we need right now, which is he will cause a disruption in the deep state that may be big enough that the people can regain at least some degree of control. This is not a one election thing. There is no blowing up the Death Star and then we're all fine. This is going to be a multi-generational attack that we have to do to regain our control, because we are not a democracy. We've never been a democracy. People say, well, we're a republic. That's true, but my point is, we're not even that. We are a plutocracy right now that has the illusion of a democratically elected republic.
Oh, like Helldivers.
Yes,
Yeah,
like Helldivers.
like Helldivers.
Yep. Everyone uses the term. Look, anyone who uses the term fascist, please understand that just means they're communists, because fascism is the word communist to use for anyone who's not a communist.
Well, my understanding is fascist is just a pejorative term for anyone who disagrees with you politically.
It is. Well, that's like first and foremost, yes, but it's also it is a pejorative used by communists for anyone who's not a full communist.
Yeah.
It's what we are. We are not. This is not a fascist government. It's a plutocracy, and what that means is it's ruled by the wealthy. But here's the thing: it's not about being rich. The truly wealthy are politically connected. Your Amazons, your Apples, your Facebooks, your Googles, they became the near monopolies that they are because of government intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Because contrary to what people say, it's like, oh, well, the Democrats, they're for no. And everyone's like, well, isn't it weird that the Democrats have stopped being the party of the little man and the Republicans are the party of the little guy? It's like, no, it's not weird. You just weren't paying attention. There's a difference between what people say and what they do. Democrats have always been about one thing: bigger, stronger, centralized government. The Republicans were, again, and mainstream Republicans were the same thing, just slower. What does big government really like? It's not controlling everything necessarily. It is what they like is big businesses, because those big businesses are much more easy to control. All that's happened is people have recognized, hey, these people are not on our side. If you want to actually make a life for yourself, I can't have this corporate plutocracy that we are. That's why the populist movement has taken power. It's just people are realizing, because of the social stuff. It is the social war and the culture war that's pushed people into the Republican sphere, and where the Republican sphere has allowed people to sort of combine and meet up.
Dude, I am seeing all the time on the internet and on YouTube, like people who are like, I was a former Democrat, and then all this whole culture war started happening, and I just decided to switch sides. It's like I'm seeing so many examples of that now.
Yes, and because the dam has burst. The problem is Trump did the one thing I wanted him to do, and that was to be the cog, or the
monkey wrench
in the machine that jams up the gears enough that the entire machine had to move. And people are seeing it, because now they had to go from soft power to hard power. And the thing is, soft power, again, it's the whole frog boiling thing, right? Soft power is raising it slowly. Hard power is cranking it to 10 and slamming the lid shut.
Mm-hmm.
You do that fast enough, and people are like, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't how it's supposed to go. And that's where we are. They had to move from soft to hard power, which meant they had to push everything harder. And so now people, again, Trump's not a conservative. He is a Democrat from 20 years ago. Bill Clinton talked about building a wall.
Trump literally was a Democrat 20 years ago.
Yeah, he was literally a Democrat until he ran as a Republican. But that's the whole point, is so many people have been moving over because they realized, because again, not the Republican. Dan Bongino, one of the largest conservative broadcasters, not just podcasters, but broadcasters, he famously says, the Republicans are not the solution to your problem, but the Democrats are the cause. He's even conservatives right now will tell you, nope, it is not in the establishment. We're not going to find solutions in the establishment Republicans, because they view the establishment Republicans as part of the deep state. They recognize that. So it's not the Republican Party that's the solution. Is that it's because it was always the heat sink. It allowed people to come together anyway. And so now, and I've talked about this for a while, Rush Limbaugh provided a venue for people to talk about ideas and to formulate ideas of freedom, of liberty, what responsibilities, how culture works. He allowed for people like Thomas Sowell to become known, right? To have those conversations and for people to sort of come together and formulate those ideas. And now it's like, okay, we don't have control of the party, but within the party, we can still have power. We can still make changes, again, slowly, but we can group and we can unite. And so people are now saying, look, I didn't want to be over here, but you forced me over here. You forced me from where I was to be over there because you didn't give me an option. We've talked about this, right? It's like I was fully, a lot of people were like, hey, I was fully prepared to not care about homosexual marriage or any of that. But you came after my kids. You're telling me that the stuff that my kid can be taken from me because they want to surgically and chemically mutilate their body without my parental consent. And you're telling me that's supposed to be a good thing? I'm out, right? And they're going, oh, and the problem is once they see the one thing, they tend to start seeing other things as well. They're like, why are we spending all this money over here when we can't make our bills? Right? It's like because the problem is once the crack in the armor happens, it becomes impossible to not see all the other things, right?
Yes. And I appreciate that you did not say chink in the armor, because you considered the present company. Thank you for that, Jason.
I'm here for you, brother.
Yeah, my dignity is intact. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So do you think Trump makes it on the ballot?
At this point, they can't not have him on there because there are a lot of these were never supposed to actually work. The point was the point was not to convict him. The point was the process. The process is the punishment, right? And and all the things that anything they've actually gotten him on were wildly manipulated.
Unless I don't know, they might actually try to lock him up though.
Oh, I'm certain they're going to try. Like they're going to try. The problem is every time they push it, it's so obvious that I think you would like to think at some point they'd be smart enough to realize, hey,
that would be a bad idea though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they'd have to realize this is going to be bad for us if we do this, because it's obvious that this is a political persecution, right?
Right. Just ask Pompey how that worked out for him when he tried that on Julius Caesar.
Well, and so here's the thing. A lot of people have said, well, this is the end of this is the collapse of the Roman Empire. It's not. It's really what we're seeing is the end of the Republic with Julius Caesar. Now, again, everyone's like, oh, does that mean he's Caesar? Caesar was the good guy. Julius Caesar, whether you like it or not, was the good guy.
And he wasn't Julius Caesar was technically was never really emperor because he was assassinated too quick before all that happened. That really went to Augustus, but
you're right. It's Augustus, and again, and we put everything on him that happens later. But the thing is, Julius Caesar was a populist. I'm not saying that I'd like for him to run anything. I have different values and morals. That's 2,000 years ago, but he was a populist. His concern was the people, which is again also why the senators killed him. Yeah. Right. Everyone's like, oh, they killed him because they're trying to.
He was, but I guess, I mean, he was really good at enslaving white people, wasn't he? All those Europeans he enslaved. Damn, he's a European enslaving machine.
Yep. Exactly. Those Italians knew what was up.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, right? It's like we're not at the end of the empire. We're at the end of the republic. But what that means, so the question it really is, can we make it through so the populist uprising can take back control, and power returns back to the people, meaning we remove slowly over time, sadly, control in Washington and goes back to the states. More and more things go back to the states. Or again, does it turn real violent and essentially we go the way of communism where he's assassinated and they end up whether that's politically or physically, and the deep state just says, nope, we're done. Here's the new, we're the new ruling elite, and you're just going to do what we say. Because the problem is we are under Keynesian economics right now, which treats money as if it's not a real thing, because it's not. But they also, so money isn't a real thing per se, but it is a measurement of economic value and health, right? Under Keynesian economics, it says that you can just create as much money as you want, as long as there are people to pay taxes, right? As long as you can service the debt, you're fine. The problem is you have to have enough real money to support the fake money that's going out. And the fake money is supported because it's used. Petrodollar, things like that. It's a store of value. And right, that's why our money is dying as fast as it is. Again, it's also why China and Russia and India had created BRICS, and Brazil created BRICS, was to create a new store of value, to sort of divide the planet along economic lines. The question becomes, can we return to a point where we are more than wage slaves? Because that's what we are right now. We are in a plutocracy and we are all wage slaves. Even Donald Trump is a wage slave because he's part of the real economy. Our economy is what's supporting the fake economy, the government economy. And that's what this is. This is an uprising of the real economy versus the government economy. Can we wrestle back some degree of control so we can start decentralizing power and returning and eliminating the governmental economy and giving control back to the real economy, us, our actual goods and exchanges, which would bring jobs back to this country and restore our presence, our economy as a place of value for wealth? Or do we lose this and essentially they just clamp down and we remain wage slaves essentially for the next 5 generations because they just close
until shit hits the fan?
Yeah. Because again, and we can talk about it because I know we're gonna have to do an episode on China, another follow-up episode, but we'll end on this.
We could do a couple episodes on China. That last episode I did, that was just that was just an intro, baby.
But
I'd go deep.
Oh yeah, no, we can go deep. Like I said, I'll just end on this sort of idea, but essentially that we're not looking. We're at least another 30 years away from a military conflict, unless something big happens. We're at least 30 years away from a true military conflict with China because China needs our economy. The only reason China can keep the lights on is because we're propping them up. They're creating BRICS, but that's a long-term solution because right now they're too dependent on us to go.
I think that whole BRICS ship has already sailed with the way things are going, especially with China and Russia, and
it's if China can't get along,
it's already sailed.
Well, and I think there's something coming with Russia. I think they're going to. The thing is, China's thinking 30, 40, 50, 100 years down the road. That's when that kind of stuff would actually pay off. The problem is right now, they need us. The only reason they keep the lights on is because of our economy.
Dude,
so they can't.
They're not even paying
us.
They're
not
even paying their civil servants, man. I mean, that's a real bad sign.
Oh, it's bad. Again. So here's the thing. Okay, we'll throw a little eschatology in here. One of the things I predicted the Ukraine war because Russia is the bear from Daniel. There are 3 ribs in its mouth. And I said, there's one of a couple ways this can shake out. I think that the one rib was Georgia, the one rib was Crimea. I think the third rib is Ukraine. When Ukraine is over, there is a war involving Russia that is massive. It's a big war. I don't know what it is, but it's a big war. All we're told is the bear rises up and consumes much flesh. That's it. Now, it's possible that Crimea, because Crimea is a part of Ukraine, is that
Right.
Crimea and Ukraine are the same rib. If that's the case, then there's a third former Soviet Union state that it will go to war with and grab part of it. But if Ukraine, if they still end up getting part of Ukraine and they keep Crimea, I would not be surprised if Ukraine was that third rib. If so, there's a war coming. It's entirely possible that war is between them and Russia, or Russia and China, or it could be against the West. We don't know. Like there's
Right.
no limit.
Because the relations between Russia and China is not always so hunky dory.
Mhm.
You know, there's still a lot of land
Yeah.
disputes going on, especially along the borders.
Oh, absolutely.
People
They are
don't really pay attention to all that.
no. Well, it's so Putin is not a communist. He never has been, but he wants to return the Russian Empire.
Right.
But Russia and China have never really been friends, even when they were communists. They were allies, but they weren't friends.
You're right.
And again, because the number one enemy of a communist is a different communist. Because Mao's communism was different from Stalin's communism.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the recent changes in China still put them at odds even with Russia in the 80s. They were allies, but they weren't friends. That's
Right.
never changed. Iran is in Russia are friends. Iran's kind of friends with China, but that's more forced. But Russia and China have never been friends. They will never be friends, even though they are allies right now. I would not be surprised if this war that's mentioned in Daniel is between Russia and China. And if that happens, again, all bets are off. I think, is our military in great shape right now? No, it's been mishandled for a very, very long time. We are militarily weaker than we've been in a long time. That having been said, we are still infinitely stronger than every other nation on the planet.
True that.
We are weak for us. Like, we could not fight two Gulf-sized wars on two fronts on two different parts of the planet. That makes us feel weak. Because again, World War II is what shapes the modern United States. We think we need to be able to fight essentially a massive military conflict on two fronts on either side of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
That was always our readiness doctrine post World War II. We can't do that right now, but that still doesn't mean that we are not infinitely stronger than everyone else on the planet.
Right.
Of the top 7 air forces on the planet, we are 4 of them. The Marines are the lowest one. I think Marines, like the Marine Air Force is like 7th. So the top 7, we're 4 of them. And if you put all 4, again, you combine Air Force, the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Air Force, just all together, we have more just aircraft. Russia, China, I think it's Russia, China, Britain, and Italy combined.
I can believe it.
It's not even, again, we are weaker than we would like to be. We are stronger than everyone else on the planet. The question is whether or not we have the ability to. Now, whether or not we have the ability to use it or the will to use it, that's a problem. That's really where the question is, right? The one thing I keep wondering why no one's mentioned this bothers me. There are still American hostages that Hamas has. Why, regardless of your view of that conflict, why have we allowed Hamas to retain American hostages?
Maybe we're waiting for Israel to take care of that for us, But
why? That's my whole point.
Yeah.
Why do we have? Again, I don't care what your view on that conflict is. Why have we allowed our citizens to be held hostage? There's no reason on the planet any American should ever be taken hostage, but they are, and we're not doing anything to stop that. Like I said, We could say, look, this is between y'all, but you're giving us our people back, or we will come in and take them.
Yeah. I
Like
guess people are too afraid to navigate that political minefield of sending in U.S. troops into that
we but
area.
but we have those, but we have U.S. troops there. That's the
Well,
problem. We already have troops. Oh yeah, we do.
we could just, arm some other folks and have them go in for us, Jason.
We are in virtually we're in everywhere on the planet. We're
Yeah.
involved in every conflict on the planet. There's no the simple fact of the matter is we have the power to make differences, to make changes, but we're not, because people are being paid not to use them. That's what this comes down to. Again, the deep state that we're talking about, this larger structure, they're being paid to, they're getting kickbacks to use our military the way they see fit. That is not necessarily in our benefit. It's not to benefit the people, it's to benefit them. But again, China is smart enough to know that if they pulled enough crap, if they stepped over a line, there is no way we would be able to not retaliate. And as weak as we are, we would still end them overnight. We In the 80s, we took out Iran's navy in 8 hours.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. That was.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys don't know about that, look it up. We fucking destroyed their asses. We fucked them
Yeah.
up.
Russia, it would take a few days, because again, we are
Yeah.
just so much. Again, China the same way.
Yeah.
The question is whether or not we would be willing to do it, but we could. We are unmatched. Right now, the only reason we haven't done it is because people are getting paid not to do it. I don't think China is going to push anything. I really think if there's a world war, it's going to be between Russia and China, because something could happen that would spark that conflict. And if it happens, it's going to get bad, and it's going to get ugly real fast.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough. Real quick though, Jason,
Mm-hmm.
how many people do you think you pissed off with this talk tonight?
If I haven't pissed off everyone, then I failed.
Aren't you so glad that we're not live? Could you imagine all the comments in the chats right now? Just
I'm sad that we're not live, because I would have loved to have seen the chat. But no, I don't care. Like, the simple fact of the matter is, if you're like, I'm a Republican, like, I vote Republican, I caucus with the Republicans because that's where the fight is. But I'm not a Republican, because
I don't.
again, they're a heat sink. That's all they've
Right.
been. That's why we got where we are. If you're like, no, Democrats are the way, really? Please show me the top 10 Democrat run cities. Show me where they aren't all, where the most violent cities in our country are. If you got rid of, we're in like the top 3 for violence, but if you got rid of like New York, LA, Chicago, Philadelphia, I forget the first, I forget which, but they're all Democrat run cities. If you got rid of just those 5, we go down to the bottom. Where's it more? It's more dangerous to be black in a Democrat city than anywhere else on the planet. That's where you
That
have
is
the
true.
highest rates. That's where you have the worst
That
schools.
is true.
That's where you have the highest rates of violence, the highest rates of poverty.
Yep.
People are leaving Democrat-run states to go to Republican-run states, not because Republicans are the solution. It's because Democrats are simply, they've pushed the problem so far. That's all it is. And if you think, again, Republican good, Democrat bad, you're not listening.
Right.
It's us, the people, versus a much higher up, much more politically connected elite. Both sides, because those sides aren't real. They're serving the intelligence, the military industrial complex. We are wage slaves. This fight is between the wage slaves and the people holding the whip. That's all this is. If we don't win this, our children and grandchildren are going to be wage slaves, and something bad will happen that you can't imagine. Now, unfortunately, it may be that the tragedy that is going to come isn't just here; it will be worldwide, because for all of our faults, we have the last 60, 80 years has been the most peaceful time humanity has ever seen, whether we like it or not. The CIA's whole thing is, we don't want big wars, we want small wars. Humans have flourished more under the American regime than at any time in human history. The problem is, if we collapse, if we can't fix this now, there could be a war that leads to the deaths of billions of people. Because if we aren't there to stabilize all this, and to actually try and fix some of these problems, it will become unfixable. And then
or if
that
not the
leads to
deaths of
bloodshed.
billions, at the very least, a total economic meltdown. But
Yeah. Right. Because, well, here's the thing, economics is just how people put food on the table.
Yeah.
If our economy completely collapses, then there's no reason for China not to just say, okay, well, we're just going to become the Mongols and just go take what we want. And again,
I dare them to try, man. I dare them to try.
And again, that may be unavoidable. Like I said, they
Yeah.
may just be, like I said, as we've discussed before, but that's a whole episode, is that their economy may be so far gone, there may not be a way to avoid that. But the simple fact of the matter is, if we remain the way we are, our economy will absolutely collapse. This cannot continue the way it is and still have, without it getting way worse. So this is either a populist uprising, a peaceful populist uprising against an overarching intelligence-driven, and again, that's military intelligence, this military-industrial complex, that, whatever you want to call it, that is driving us so far into debt. That servicing the debt is the number one item on our budget every year. We pay more to service the debt than we do for our military. That's right now. And if it continues, there's no way to avoid what's coming.
And if people are wondering, I do not consider myself Democrat or Republican, but I do vote Democrat sometimes because I favor A.O.C. because I think she's a hottie.
You like yourself some big booty Latina?
I think she's cute, and I have a crush on her. And don't deny my feelings, Jason McLean. Don't deny my feelings.
Oh, I don't. I understand.
I would like to, if I ever meet her, I would like to ask her out on a date and profess my my affection for her. I think she's a cutie, and I would like to be her boyfriend. So there's that.
There you go. You need that sugar mama.
Yeah.
You want that good sugar mama.
Yeah, I don't even know what her policies are. I don't even give a shit. She's such a cutie pie. All right.
Hey, I get it.
I think we've pissed off enough folks tonight, but man, I'm really curious to see what the chat's going to look like once we post this.
Oh, it'll be fun.
I'm real curious about this one. All right, folks, we're going to head out. Next time, we're going to do some, I guess, cryptid talk. Because at the end of the day, the ones who will protect us from the Chinese invaders, those Chinese sons of bitches, will be the army of Bigfoot, who will be our vanguard. Bigfoot
and the pterosaurs. And the
pterosaurs. And our Lord and Savior Dogman. Could you imagine like a Dogman eating like catching like these Chinese soldiers and eating them, and Dogman's like, my, how the tables have turned now.
The turntables have turned now.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if people got that joke. Okay, we're gonna end on that. Later.
Bye.